Okay, so let's just dive right into the wild world of Ash Trevino. She's a social media figure who got famous not for making, cool videos or anything like that, but for live streaming her life as what many people have called a human disaster. It's this whole saga that's played out in real time for literally thousands of people to see. And this is probably the audio clip that put her on the map for so many people. It's bizarre, it's shocking, and for a hot minute, it was absolutely everywhere. And it really just leaves you asking one big question. How in the world did we get to this point? So to figure that out, we're going to trace this whole thing from the start. We'll kick things off with her life before social media, then get into the inmate hopper era that first got her attention. After that, the TikTok live chaos that made her infamous, the really intense scrutiny of her parenting, and then we'll wrap up by asking, what part does the audience play in all of this? All right, so let's rewind. Let's go all the way back to the beginning, because before all the constant live streams and all the controversy, Ash Trevino's life actually looked, well, pretty normal. She married her high school sweetheart, had 2 daughters, and then by the time she was 27, she found herself a single mom going through a divorce. And this right here, this is the backdrop for everything, and I mean everything that comes next. So this next chapter of her life is what really gave her that first taste of online notoriety. A lot of sources call it the inmate hopper era, where her public relationships with incarcerated men basically became her brand. Now, what's fascinating here is that there's actually a psychological term for this kind of attraction: hybrisphilia. It's basically a sexual interest in people who've committed crimes, and it gives us a little bit of context for the pretty clear pattern we're about to see. And yeah, a pattern definitely emerges. I mean, look at this timeline. It's just a super rapid-fire succession of relationships and even marriages, almost all of them with men who were in prison at the time. The speed of it all is, well, it's a huge part of the story. But here's the thing. The real controversy wasn't just that she was in these relationships. It was about the crimes these men were accused or convicted of. The sources point to some incredibly serious cases. We're talking about Eli, who was accused of horrific child abuse, and Francisco, who was convicted for the premeditated murder of 2 teenage girls. And to really get the gravity of this, you have to see the official record. This isn't just some online rumor. This quote is pulled straight from court documents. The language is so stark and chilling, and it's a pretty brutal reminder of the reality behind the online drama, especially when you remember one of his victims was only 13 years old. So the big question is, how did Ash react when people brought this stuff up on her live streams? Well, when she was confronted with the allegations against Eli, the ones involving his own child, her public response was simply this: "It's not my business. It is what it is." All of that kind of set the stage for the relationship that would make her truly, truly infamous. So let's get into the Santos saga. This was a chaotic, deeply controversial online partnership that just shot her fame into a whole different stratosphere. Man, this was a total disaster that just unfolded in stages. It kicked off with this very public, big age gap flirtation between Ash, who was 35, and Santos, who was 19. That led to a party they live streamed where the cops actually got called because Santos was underage and there was alcohol. Then accusations of stolen valor popped up, with people claiming he'd faked his entire military career, and it all just imploded when the two of them publicly accused each other of sexual assault, only to later blow the whole thing off as just TikTok drama. But honestly, out of all the controversies, nothing has drawn more intense criticism than the moments that involve her kids. So now we're going to pivot to the most sensitive part of her online life: her public parenting. And the impact on her family seems pretty clear, coming directly from her own daughter. During one of these live streams, her 13-year-old daughter came into the room and just pleaded with her, saying this, begging her to stop. The scrutiny isn't just about what's happening today either. Ash herself actually admitted on a live stream to past physical actions against her daughter, explaining that it came from being jealous over the affection her daughter got from her father. And viewers were constantly pointing out this really jarring contrast in her behavior. So on one hand, you've got her totally dismissive reaction to her own daughter being sick, and on the other, you have her fiercely defending Santos after that whole police incident. The difference in empathy is, well, it's pretty stark. And you can see the emotional toll through her daughter's own social media. This repost just offers this heartbreaking look into her kid's perspective, basically saying she just wants a hug and an apology. So who is watching all of this? And maybe more importantly, why? Let's zoom out a bit and look at the role the audience plays in this, and the whole social media economy that doesn't just allow, but often actually rewards this kind of public meltdown. The scale here is just massive. At the absolute peak of the drama with Santos, right when the police showed up at their party, almost 60,000 people were watching it all go down live. This wasn't some niche thing, it was a full-blown online spectacle. And this quote from Film Cooper absolutely nails the audience's relationship with her content. People were treating her real life not as, real life, but as a fictional story with lore. They were talking about characters and plot points like it was a TV show, totally detaching the spectacle from the very real people involved. So what is it that makes people so fascinated? Well, psychology points to a few key things. First, there's downward social comparison, feeling better about your own life by watching someone else's. Then you have parasocial relationships, that one-sided feeling like you actually know these people. And of course, there's the simple, powerful train wreck effect. It's just impossible to look away. Which brings us to the final and I think most important question. In this whole spectacle economy that's fueled by views and gifts and engagement, all those psychological drivers, the social comparison, the feeling of connection, the train wreck effect, they basically become a form of currency. They power the very behavior people are tuning in to watch. So it forces us to ask, at what point does the audience stop being just a spectator and become part of the disaster itself?